script. I'm going into vector planes, and I'm using what I know with Pathmapper and shifting lists, shifting trees to try and make this a little more exciting. What I have here, and I'll just take off my turntable, is a sphere that informs as a geometry the geometries that are around it. As you can see, they're kind of these sausage-like, well, capped end pipes. It's not a very complex script, but it does have some neat details which are worth looking into. So as we go into it, I'll take this item and just put it to visibility off, and it's on rendering, so you'll only see half. So let's go back to shaded. Actually, I don't mind looking at things in artistic. It's all right. Take a little while to bake when I do that. So whenever you have a technical drawing, it can slow things down. So standard sphere, and how are these little pills made around it? Start with a sphere. I've made surface points on it by dividing 10 by 10, which you can change your count. I put a plane on each one of those, and I do a quick, I believe it's plane orientation, that's not the exact name for it, it's adjust plane that adjusts them to the surface, and they're pretty hard to see, so you can go to display and take your preview plane size, and you go down to 0.2, which is going to make those real tiny, but now you give a sense of where all those planes have been oriented on the surface. So you gain some geometric control. Number those and put them all through a range of twisting them in different ways. So basically, I've got them moving from 0 to 2 pi and having a range of moving. Of course, it's going to slow down because there's all this pipe geometry on top of each one. So if I take that up to, I don't know, let's keep it at where it was, about 1.21, it's there. So that's the old way of kind of working and thinking. I then grab my x, y, and z coordinates, which I was thinking of doing something with. So I have them at my disposal on the xy plane. You can change that system of what you're actually looking at. But I'm going to orient beautiful cylinders on each one. Could have been any geometry. I put them in a large radius. I could have shrunk them down so I could see them on each one. But I like that those points overlapped and do some funky things. And then I do a point count on each one of those cylinders, and quite a bit of a point count. So each cylinder, if I was to reduce it on each cylinder to 1 or 2 points on each cylinder, and I shrink it, you'll start to see, oh, that's how you're conceiving of those points. I'm going to leave it at where it is because it's a massive cluster of points. And then what I do is I know I have 1,331 branches, and I simplify those because they come out unsimplified. Just massive with all these other paths. So you have to put on a simplify. You know you're dealing with a path mapper when you put it in O. We'll have an A, B, C, and X, Y, Z on all those points. And I decided to take the indices and reduce by 1. The reason being, I found when I was looking at my cylinders and I was dividing them up, say in their 10 sets, they were looping around, and there was actually, you'll see 11 from the divide. So I had to reduce it like dealing in a range. So I thought, well, I'd take my indice count and take it down to a 10. So now I've got just points on each surface, and hopefully that'll show. And once again, it's pretty complex to look at. You're going to want to take your point count down to about 2, and then look at the very small range, and you might be able to understand that each cylinder has 2 points on each. If that is making sense, click on here and take off the rest of your data for a second. Just take that and hit disable. And now I should be able to see. Of course, it's not working out too well for me if I've got my sphere in view. So I definitely want to see my cylinders. Let me grab those. Let me take those to see. This shouldn't be hard to see. Why are my cylinders hard to see? Maybe I've taken the length and radius down so they're invisible. So I didn't mean to take them down so far. So the length and radius is there. I didn't mean to take the count so far down. The points on each one are here. And then you can see that I brought it down. And of course, I've taken my disable off. I kind of got away with myself trying to show things. So put that disable back on. Now what I did was I took that path and I decided to divide it by its own path count divided by 1. The reason I did that is because I was playing with dividing that path count by 1. Let's say 1. Divided by 1, 1 divided by 4. I was having the ability to play around a little bit in this path mapper to see how those geometries would change up if I started playing a little bit with there, and I'd start to get this funky kind of patterns that are a little different. So I'm going to leave it at 1 or 1 divided by 1 will be the same answer. So that should pull me back into what I had. And then that path count, what was it at? There's certain functions you can use in here: item count, path count, and item index. So I think I had it on item index there for a while, but I've been playing around a little bit with that. And what I've tried to do is take this information from 336. Obviously, dividing it will then start to reduce these, change the branches, change the indice items, as you see, and you can see there's a little, how many items do I have here? 360 branches with all of those items each. Let me just change this back to a, I can read what I have. 1 item each, 363 items each. Sometimes I get lost a little bit in this coding as I go in, because as I enter the path tree, I wanted to take those points. It might be good to have another point to see what changes occurred. Those points, yeah, these points to these points are what I've basically done by dividing it by its path count. You can visualize that if you're not really understanding what the terminology is referencing, but it's actually just dealing with the param viewer, and you've got your paths and you've got your items at the end of the list. So if you start to understand which one of those are the item count, which are the path count, which are the indice count, you could have some pretty cool effect of grabbing them and working with all of them. Otherwise, you're just dealing with the I and then the ABC, or how I may come up in the Pathmapper null. Anyway, pull those paths into the data into your split tree, and I chose 2 patterns that would grab all the items here, all the items here, and I wanted to grab a series of swapping the I for this. I didn't swap I for the C. I just am working with the C path. So I'm taking a series, stepping up 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then the other one I'm stepping up 1, 3, 5. So I'm choosing evens and odds to mask, and I'm ending up with these points here and these points here. And since they don't line up and they're different points, but if you hover over them, you'll see there's 363 values, 363 values. I could clean the tree because it's going to be full of terrible things. It's going to be full of nulls, and you're going to want to clean those up and get rid of those because nothing's happening there. So always cleaning trees is a good idea, and I always usually put my remove empty on in case any are emerging, and I pipe those 2 together, and that's it. You get the same items, and you've built a system of pipes. So there they are. Not too hard. So why, when I go back and I take this off, I think I'll go back and put my preview, my circle on it. This is not the object I started with, so I must have played a little bit with my data as I went through. I don't recall changing too much except playing with it physically in a way I used to. Take the count up, start to grab more as you creep around, and you've got a frame of what you're grabbing as a section. Now you could gain access to all the points you didn't choose, and that's why I like the split tree. You can go in here and say, well, I want these geometries, so I don't have to just make that circle. Let me put this preview on. I don't have to make that circle inside from the original circle. I could deal with the data that's actually coming out here that doesn't highlight these line points. And I could do something like, what if I took all those points? And that's going to take a while, so I'm going to go on Mesh and grab a mesh sphere. Now this is going to be huge as I bring that in, but I'm definitely going to want to take the radius of 10, put that down into 1 range of a param slider, plug that in, and bring those all down so those other ones emerge. And I'm not sure what size and scale. There we go. So they got to be really tiny at 1.1. And now you got this kind of thing that you can do. You can take all these points and put them on preview off. You can go back to that circle because you're using it as the original shape. You don't want to go back to such a simple thing. And now you've got these little biscuits floating around this globe. Now why you're making this stuff, I have no idea. But it is about being creative, and we can grab that geometry over here. I like the radius. It's about half of what the other one is. You can put it through a range and have some really nice ranges. But you've got basically these you can throw out into a bake. There they are. And I don't know if they're grouped. They're not. I'm just going to make for, if you ever do something like that and bake it, just grab everything and just hit join if they'll join, but you certainly group. And select the group to group. And now when you select, that's like going into here and grabbing this one and going to a bake. And you'll see when I bake that, it usually gives you a chance to do group, and you're going to want to do that. And so now you've got two different geometries that you can leave from your original script. You can downsize this. You can jump in here. We're at the 10-minute mark, which is usually about as long as I want to go. This will take a little bit of time because there was technical modes on the other screens. And once that's done, you've got your pen drawing of it without any rendering. You've got your artistic drawing it from the side. You've got your technical from the top, which I always find is nice to look at. And then you have whatever view of rendered you want to bring in here. And you've got it here. And if you ever wanted to grab your, I've got this kind of in the way. That's hard for me to get at it. Oh well. I'm just trying to get back in my Grasshopper dock, which is tucked down in here, and I don't want to close it out, but it's underneath here. Probably because my screen is just too darn big. Let me just shrink my screen, and there we go. I can pull that back in, and then I can just, with Grasshopper, I can ensure that I'm grabbing maybe one of them, and shrink that. I just get that back shoved down. There we go. I've got the blue selected, so you can see all the spheres. And I didn't bake those, so I'm not going to be able to do anything else with it. You could also go in here, grab your EMAP, which is always nice, or your zebra surface analysis. And actually, I don't want to grab this. And there we go. We should have the EMAP on there. And fun little exercise with some things baked, some things not baked. Slide your, it's still moving pretty quick, so it's not a terribly small script because I used meshes instead of spheres. And you've got this kind of psychedelic little area thing that you made. Not sure why you'd want to have this as a screensaver, but gain control of your geometries. Have a lot of fun. All the things you learn basically and fundamentally can start to play into analyzing lists of lists. I think when you open your mind to that, it is pretty endless, and it's pretty formal to start and technical because as you stretch your computational skills into conceptual art, that is where it's really going to rely on a basis of understanding how to do things. But the conceptual, really ask yourself, what should I be doing? What should I be doing? What should the contemporary world be looking at? And thanks very much for watching. I'm excited about this simple little script. I've been playing a couple days with it, having fun with it. Thanks for watching.